Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the Application Mechanics Submitting an Application session. My name is DJ Neese, and I'm with the JustGrants training team. Here with me today, I have Lisa Hartman, who will help me walk through a few demonstrations. Also, in the Q&A, as you ask your questions, other team members will be providing answers as we go through this session. Okay. Let's take just a moment here to describe the tools available to communicate with the presenters and other subject matter experts. First, if you haven't noticed, we've disabled video for all participants to ensure the best possible connection. Also, we have muted all attendees to limit background noise as well. Next, if you need technical assistance during the session, please use the chat feature to alert the host. Address your chat to all panelists, and someone will help you. Also, if you can't hear the session, use the arrow to the right of the mute/unmute button for more audio connection options. This can help if you need to connect audio to a different set of speakers. If you are not able to solve the problem using the audio options, you can phone into the session using the number in your meeting invitation details. Also in this session, we ask that you submit your questions using the Q&A chat function. This allows answers to be linked to questions to make it easier for you to see. Please address your questions to all panelists, as any of our panelists might be able to answer your question. As the number of questions and answers grows, you can use the scroll bar within the Q&A section to scroll up and down to view all questions and answers. During this session, we will answer the questions that are related to JustGrants and how to submit your application within the system. We will not be able to answer questions that are specific to the award that you are applying to. Please save those questions for your grant manager and refer to the solicitation. And now we have Brenda Worthington, and she's going to tell you about some key points for JAG application submissions.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you so very much for joining us today. My name is Brenda Worthington, and I'm an Associate Deputy Director in the Bureau of Justice Assistance. I have here with me today the JAG team in BJA. I have Darius Cicero, who is the Division Chief that oversees the JAG team in BJA, and Teresa Napolitano, who's the JAG lead and the State Policy Advisor that oversees JAG in BJA. So thank you all for being here, and we are so very glad that so many of you were able to join us today. While this presentation here is to really work through getting your application in JustGrants, we did want to discuss a few key points regarding the JAG program and some of the priorities. While also most of the questions are going to be geared toward JustGrants, myself, Darius, and Teresa will be here and answering questions in the chat. If you do have any JAG program specific questions, we will get to as many of those as we can in the chat, but we will be here. So please let us know if there's anything we can answer. We will jump right in and help you as much as we can. So I just wanted to start out by discussing some of the priorities. You probably saw this in the solicitation that the Department of Justice is committed to advancing work that promotes civil rights, increases access to justice, supports victims, protects the public from crime and evolving threats, and builds trust between law enforcement and the community. We also, as we do every year, included areas of emphasis in the solicitation, and this encourages JAG recipients, even though the JAG program is a very broad program, we want to encourage JAG recipients to use funding for certain purposes that the department and the administration is interested in. So you've probably read through these areas in the solicitation if you're on this webinar, but these areas of emphasis are restoring justice to support state, local, tribal, and territorial administration of justice, community violence intervention, law enforcement accreditation, policy development and training, technologies to support transparency and information sharing between law enforcement and communities, sustaining COVID-19 criminal justice innovations, and innovative forensic technologies such as rapid DNA for booking stations. Just yesterday, President Biden announced the Biden-Harris administration's comprehensive strategy to prevent and respond to gun crime and ensure public safety. During this announcement, the use of JAG funds to address the backlog of cases created when courts at every level were forced to cancel or scale back proceedings due to COVID-19 was made very clear. Also, the support of community violence intervention programs and other investments that we know will reduce crimes in our neighborhoods and to make our neighborhoods safer was also made clear. Before we move on to the application submission portion of the program, I do want to mention a few new frequently asked questions that we recently added, and we'll include a link to that frequently asked questions document at the end of this presentation. We, in this document, clarified that JAG funds can be used to purchase canines, including those used for drug detection. We clarified that JAG funds can be used to support projects related to preventing, detecting, seizing, and/or stopping the presence and use of contraband cell phones by detainees and inmates. This includes the purchasing of managed access systems and other mitigation technologies, and that's as permitted by applicable law. Last but not least, we clarified that JAG funds can be used by state and local governments for crime prevention efforts to increase patrols and deployments that bolster the security of at-risk nonprofit organizations, including synagogues, churches, mosques, and other places of worship. And also, before I pass the presentation over to the JustGrants team, I do want to provide a friendly reminder that we are still on hold with regard to the review and processing of any requests for unmanned aerial vehicles. We will be providing an update as soon as available, but we will not be processing any requests for approval of any prohibited expenditures under that category for unmanned aerial vehicles until further notice. And like I said, we will let you know as soon as we are able to resume that process. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy this webinar. And like I said, we will be able to answer any questions as quickly as we can in the chat. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you so much for that information, Brenda. Okay, so the purpose of today's discussion is to review some of the onboarding steps, which also includes entity roles. Then we will go through the steps of application submission, which include going through grants.gov and how to locate and submit an application. Lastly, we will go over where to go for help as you navigate through the system. Now, let's go over a few entity onboarding reminders. If you're new to the JustGrants system, here's a visual roadmap to give you an overview of the steps needed to go through the application process. Applicants will first want to obtain a DUNS number and receive confirmation of this. Once you have your DUNS number, you will then want to register with sam.gov and receive your confirmation from sam.gov as well. Have your sam.gov eBiz POC confirm in sam.gov that the correct person is identified as the Authorized Organization Representative, or AOR. The next step is to find the specific funding opportunity for which you'd like to apply. The applicant will need to search through grants.gov and select the correct competition ID and access the funding opportunity and application package requirements from grants.gov. Lastly, you will need to complete certain forms to finish the process in grants.gov. You will complete and submit the standard form 424 application for federal assistance, also known as the SF-424, and the Disclosure of Lobbying Activities form, also known as the SF-LLL. Here's a roadmap for returning users that can help you visualize the steps that are needed when you are onboarding. Once the entity administrator, or EA, invites the users in Diamond, the entity administrator will then assign roles for the users. The users will receive an email from Diamond and then need to successfully log into JustGrants. Remember, Diamond is a system within JustGrants that is used to onboard your users. The entity administrator plays a key role in getting the process started. Specifically, entity administrators are the only users that are able to manage other users. This includes inviting new users to JustGrants, assigning roles, and assigning users to specific applications and awards. Also, if your entity has already onboarded within JustGrants, ensure that the appropriate users in your organization have added the role of application submitter and authorized representative before they apply for funding opportunities in grants.gov. Both roles, as we will discuss, will be needed to apply and submit a grant application for DOJ funding. Once invited to JustGrants, all users will receive a registration email. They must complete all steps in the email within 72 hours of receiving it, or it will expire. That said, please don't worry. If an email expires, the entity administrator can easily generate a new one through Diamond. Also, a user's email address will become their username, and every new user can set up their own password. Users will also set up multi-factor authentication as one of the steps to register. Every time a user logs into JustGrants, they will need to select a button to send a code to their device or email. This button is part of the login process. Users will have to select the button to receive the code to complete logging in. Now, let's review the roles that play an important part in application submission. At this point, the entity administrator should have identified your authorized users for JustGrants. You can add all the users that you think will be working on your grants currently or in the future. Here's a list of the roles as of now that are available to assign to your users. Keep in mind that users can be assigned multiple roles when you are assigning them. We have created an entity user role matrix. In this matrix, it will show the breakdown of each role and how they work within JustGrants. This is available in PDF format, and we'll put this link in the matrix within the chat. Now we're going to speak to the roles that are important during the application submission process. These roles include the application submitter, authorized representative, and entity administrator. A user with the application submitter role will be the only person in JustGrants that will be able to submit an application. This role is automatically created when the application is submitted in grants.gov. The person submitting the information in grants.gov is assigned to the application in JustGrants. There can be multiple application submitters within JustGrants, but only one can be assigned to an application at a time. If this needs to change, the entity administrator can reassign this role in JustGrants as needed. The application submitter identifies the forms needed to submit an application, completes the web-based budget form, completes and certifies the application on behalf of your entity, and submits the application in JustGrants. If a member is assigned only the application submitter role, they will not be able to see the funded awards in JustGrants. It is possible to assign multiple roles to the user with the application submitter role if that is what your organization prefers. The authorized representative is the person who is authorized to go into a legal agreement on behalf of the entity. The entity administrator will need to designate who this person is because that person will need to be selected from an existing user list when the application submitter is completing the application in JustGrants. The entity administrator is also your eBiz POC. This person manages the users and their abilities within JustGrants. There can be only one entity administrator in JustGrants at a time. It would be best to know who the backup entity administrator may be, just in case someone is on vacation or must go out on medical leave. We have placed a link in the chat that leads to this video here on the screen. This will teach you more about entity onboarding and the steps you need to complete it. Also, on this page, you will have access to the job aid related to entity management that you can print out as a tool to help you set up JustGrants. Okay, Stacy, do we have any questions in the Q&A at this time that we need to address?
I think most of the questions have been answered so far. I have one. I am a new employee and the new entity administrator for the city. How do I get access to the AOR in Biz?
The AOR is a SAM.gov designation. So I believe we have resources on our training site that will walk you through the process of opening SAM.gov, which is a separate website and a separate application, and will allow you to see who in your SAM.gov account is designated as the AOR. I believe that SAM.gov will also allow you to change that if needed, but that's a separate user role from the JustGrants user roles.
Does the AR submit the application, or is the application submitter the only person to submit the application?
So that's a good question. The authorized representative is not the role that is going to submit the application. There's a role called application submitter that is the only role that's allowed to do that. Now, that doesn't mean that one person can hold both of those roles. So one person can be both the application submitter and the authorized representative if that's what works best for your organization. But in the event that there are two separate people carrying those roles for a particular application, the application submitter is the only one that will be allowed into the application to enter data and upload files and to submit the application. So I hope that answers your question.
And we have one other question. When does the platform go live? JustGrants is already live. So that is available to start using as soon as your grants are being submitted, as soon as you're applying or are submitting your grants for your grants. And I believe that is it for now. So we'll keep going and answer those questions, other questions as we get to them.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for those questions. And now we're going to look at the application submission process. During this part of the grants lifecycle, the application submission process involves completing and submitting web-based forms and submitting attachments that are required from the published solicitation. The process of submitting an application in JustGrants begins in grants.gov. Complete and submit the required documents in grants.gov as soon as possible. In order to address any problems or errors, please submit no later than 48 to 72 hours prior to the grants.gov deadline. The grants.gov portion of your DOJ application submission checklist includes the SF-424 and the SF-LLL. There are two application submission deadlines, one for grants.gov and one for JustGrants. The two deadlines can be found on the cover page of the solicitation. You can submit early in both systems if you'd like. Aside from the SF-424 and the SF-LLL, which are completed in grants.gov, most of the application is entered in JustGrants. The entity's information is auto-populated based upon entries made in sam.gov and used in grants.gov. There are specific points to understand related to your JAG application submission. Teresa Napolitano is going to walk you through these points. Teresa?
Thank you, DJ. So, as DJ said, there are some JAG-specific items that I was going to cover today with you. First, we have, there's a new two-step process that is new for JAG that we have already sort of covered here that DJ has touched on in the flow chart with the process. The first step is applying in Grants.gov. So you would need to submit your SF424 and your lobbying disclosure in Grants.gov. To register, you would need to obtain a DUNS number if you don't already have one, and a SAM registration for renewal. Step 2 would be after submitting the lobbying and the 424 in Grants.gov, the application information forms will be transferred into JustGrants. This is where the full application, including attachments, will be submitted. This is also, once it's transferred into JustGrants, this is also where you will upload your program document attachments, such as the program narrative or the chief executive certifications. Any of those requirements that are written in the JAG guidance, those attachments will be uploaded in JustGrants. However, the initial start of the application will be in step 1, Grants.gov. I do want to point out and make note here that for local JAG applicants, there are 2 distinct categories, just like last year. So you should see a category 1 and a category 2. Category 1 is for awards that are less than $25,000 and they have their own competition ID. Category 2 is for awards that are above $25,000 or above. So any allocation amounts that are above $25,000 should be applying under category 2. And when you go into grants.gov, you should see these 2 distinct categories to apply under. Next slide, please, DJ. Oh, okay. Thank you. Some key points that I would also like to point out specific to JAG would be prior to submitting an application in grants.gov, you'll want to verify the following. 1, the DUNS number is associated with an entity that's eligible to apply and receive an award. And we do list out the eligibility requirements in the JAG guidance that's listed on the JAG webpage. And we do have links here. You can see the entity, you can check to see if your entity is eligible at one of these links. If you are applying under state, there's a state link here, and there's also one for local. And you can check your allocation amounts also on these links. Step 2 would be if multiple applications are submitted, we at BJA will reach out to the respective entities to determine who should be the fiscal agent or if there are duplicate applications. So this happens every year. We will see sometimes multiple applications for the same entity. So we'll reach out to determine which should be the application that should move forward and which should not. And lastly, unlike previous years, we were able to extend the deadline for local and state. However, we will not be able to extend like we had in previous years. So late application submission, once the deadline is passed, is going to be difficult due to system constraints and JustGrants. So we may be able to extend. However, once these deadlines have passed, we will not have the ability to accept late applications this year. So do what you can to submit an application. Even if you don't have all of the information or application attachments, it's imperative that you submit something so that we can work with you to get the remaining items uploaded and processed. And the last thing I'd like to note here is referencing the DUNS number. We've had some issues with cities having a different DUNS number than the police department or counties with a different DUNS than the Sheriff's Office. And I just wanted to provide some quick examples of what is acceptable in terms of a DUNS number and what isn't. So if a city submits an application and their DUNS number is registered in SAM for the city, then that is an acceptable DUNS number and is eligible for a JAG application award. However, if the police department submits an application and the DUNS number is registered to the city, but it says doing business as the police department, that is also acceptable. So we can accept both applications. However, if the police department submits an application and in SAM, the DUNS number is registered to the police department and there's no doing business as, or the legal name is not the city, this applicant does not meet the eligibility requirements of JAG and will not be eligible to receive an award. So it's imperative that when you're checking your DUNS in SAM and you're filling in the DUNS number in grants.gov that you're putting in the DUNS number that's associated with the legal name of the city or county, or if you're a state, obviously the state. But I just wanted to clarify that little piece. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us or put them in the Q&A section and we'll try and get to those. All right, that's it. Thanks, DJ.
Thank you so much. And yes, to reemphasize Grace's point, if you have any questions at all, please put them in the Q&A chat so we're more easily able to navigate and find those questions so we can answer them for you. Okay, next we're going to go through a little bit more about the application submission process, and we're going to talk just a little bit about that two-step process that is applying through grants.gov. As mentioned a moment ago, there's two steps that must be done to complete a submission in grants.gov. First, submit an application package, and second, submit the SF-424 and the SF-LLL. Within 48 hours after submitting the application in grants.gov, the applicant should receive 4 notifications from grants.gov: the submission receipt, validation receipt, grantor agency retrieval receipt, and agency tracking number assignment. Within 24 hours after receiving a confirmation email from grants.gov, the application submitter will receive an email from JustGrants with instructions for JustGrants login. When the application submitter logs into JustGrants, they will find the information submitted in grants.gov auto-populated in the JustGrants application. Your confirmation email only indicates that your application has been received. It is possible to receive a rejection notice a few minutes or hours later for various reasons. To search for an opportunity, use the Search Grants tab at the top of the page. You can filter the search to locate grants that are specific to your needs. You can look for grants by opportunity status, funding instrument type, eligibility, category, and agency. Take some time to review all the options in each filter. Once you find an opportunity you would like to explore, select the opportunity number to view the requirements. Once you open the grant opportunity, review the information included in the synopsis, search history, related documents, and package tabs to see if this opportunity is the one that would benefit your organization. If you choose to apply, select the Apply button. You will need to log in or create a grants.gov account to apply. Note that the person's name and email that you put into the section F on the SF-424 form is extremely important. This person will automatically become the application submitter for your entity's application. The application submitter is the only person who can complete the application in JustGrants. If you want to change who the application submitter is, then the entity administrator will need to reassign this role after it has been submitted in grants.gov. The SF-424 data fields that are marked as mandatory must be fully completed in grants.gov in order to complete Part 1 of the DOJ's two-step application process. It is okay to provide preliminary estimations and responses. An important thing to remember, an applicant pushing the submit button multiple times in grants.gov will cause duplicate submissions. In this scenario, the user will be asked to withdraw any duplicates before continuing. If you go to the Track My Application section, you can track everything for your status information. You can check if your application has been received, validated, rejected with errors, retrieved by agency, and the agency tracking number assigned. Be aware that just because you receive a confirmation that your application has been received, it does not mean it has been approved. It is only confirmation that the application has been received. You may later receive notification that your application has been rejected. When it comes to your SF-424 and your SF-LLL, it is best to have those documents completed way before the deadline so that if there are any changes or updates that are needed, you can get those in, so it doesn't cause for a rejection. The applicant will receive a tracking number that will connect JustGrants to your application. That way the system knows that the application and grant belongs to you. It's basically we have a question to the Q&A about grants.gov at this time.
We don't have any questions about grants.gov. What I do want to say is that the recording for this session and the PowerPoint presentation will be made available to everyone after this session. So just to let you know, it will be posted online. It will be available for you to review after this session. We do have training materials on the JustGrants site that are in relation to this, but we have a few extra bits of information that are a part of this presentation that are specific for a JAG. So those things will be posted again after this session. And I'm looking through the Q&A just to see if there are any grants.gov specific questions. And not at this time, so we'll keep going.
All right. Now that we've had a chance to talk about grants.gov, let's take a look at JustGrants. This is where you will complete most of your application. Some information must be submitted directly into JustGrants, such as the applicant disclosure of duplication and costs. Other information will be uploaded to JustGrants as attachments. Some of the attachments you will include are the budget worksheet and narrative, the financial management and system of internal controls questionnaire, the program narrative, chief executive certification, and states will submit a strategic plan. Now I'll go over to Lisa to walk us through the application submission process and what the application submitter will need to do in JustGrants.
Thanks so much, BJ. I appreciate all of the information you're providing. First, I have two demos to show you today. And the first one is how to locate an application in JustGrants. It's going to be a fairly short demo, just sort of getting you acquainted with the home page and how to locate that application. Then I have a little bit longer demonstration following that will walk through a specific application. So we'll go through each of the different sections of the application and take a look at how to work with all of that. So what you're looking at here is the home page for JustGrants. And this is what everyone sees when they first log in. On the left side of the page, at the upper left, you'll see a navigation menu. And again, you will default to opening up the home page. We have a number of different sections of JustGrants here. We're really only speaking about applications today. So if you have questions about sort of any other of those sections, we do have training materials available, and DJ will tell you at the end of the session how to locate those. We have alerts in the top main section of the homepage. And these are worth looking at because this is where we'll display information about, for instance, system updates or, you know, any other sort of alerts that you might, that might affect or impact you as a JustGrants user. And the main portion of the page right below that is called My Work List. And everybody's going to see different work on their work list. That work list is going to show all of the work that's assigned to you as the person logs in. So it's very specific. So I'm going to set this off, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how you can use the work list to sort of categorize and filter and sort the information you want to see. So as you can see in the work list, we have case IDs, and in this work list we're showing federal financial reports and performance reports, but in this case we're actually looking for a grant package, and that is the application. We have case status is pending draft. All of our case statuses start with the word pending. You can pretty much ignore that word. But the case ID will then display there. Now, we also have another section here, the applications menu, which really is kind of more intuitive to think about opening up in order to view applications. But I want to let you know that this is actually going to display a little different information than you're seeing on My Work List. So if your organization has multiple application submitters, you as an application submitter would only see the ones that are assigned to you on your work list. And that's where you will be able to sort of impact and affect those particular applications. In the applications menu, you're going to see all of the applications that are current in your organization. And I'd like to show you the application ID column is going to display the grants.gov tracking number. So this is how you'll be able to see and verify that the grants.gov number that you're assigned actually is displaying the application that you turned in. This grants.gov number does not display under My Work List. In this applications menu, you'll also see who the application submitter is. If an authorized representative has been assigned, you'll see that information as well. And you'll see the application status. Now, it's important to note that while the authorized representative really has no active role in submitting an application, it is important, it's actually a requirement that you determine that authorized representative as part of submitting the application in JustGrants. And I'll show you how that's done here in a moment. So one of the things that I want to impress on you is that when you open an application from the work list, it's going to open up immediately into editable format. The reason for that is it knows that as the logged in user, anything that's listed on your work list is able to be edited by you. So it automatically opens up ready for you to work. If, however, you open up an application from the applications menu, again, this shows all the applications in the system. So JustGrants isn't necessarily sure that you're the person that should be editing. What it's going to do is it's going to open up to a sort of a pre-application page. And it will require you to click a little link that you see in the upper right here called Begin. So in the assignment section, sort of at the very top of the page, you see the task listed, you see who it's assigned to, and then on the right you see a Begin. That's an actual link. Typically, if you're looking at something blue in JustGrants, it's a link and you can open it. So in order to be able to edit this application from this applications menu, you will have to click this Begin link, and only the assigned application submitter will see this Begin link. If you don't see a Begin link here, it's not assigned to you, and so you're not able to take action. But once we click that Begin link, it'll open up the application here, and it will allow you then to go through and edit. And you can see that there are buttons that you can click and links that you can click and fields that you can edit. If you click the Cancel button, it will return you back to the list of applications that you saw. The Save button will save any changes you've made, and the Continue button at the bottom is going to move you forward to the next page of the application. So that's sort of a little walkthrough on how to locate and open an application. I'm going to go ahead and show you the next demo as well, and then we'll stop for questions after that.
Lisa, before you start on the next demo, I want to remind everyone to please place your questions in the Q&A chat, not the regular chat, but the Q&A chat. This way we can keep tabs on who's asking the question and we can reply directly to the question. We have troubles replying directly to the questions within the chat because it's not connected. So please remember to put your questions in the Q&A chat. There's a little 3 dots at the bottom. Click on that. Q&A will pop up. That is where you want to put your question. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that, Stacy. I appreciate it. All right, so let's take a look at the next demo. This is submitting an application. And again, I'm going to start here with the demo from the home page, and we're going to go ahead and open the application from here. You can use a little drop-down arrow up there, and you can filter the information that you want. We want to just look for applications and pending draft status, and you can actually, from the case ID, use the filter to select a particular case ID. So you can use, again, these headers to sort and filter. So once we open up the application, I'd like to just sort of orient ourselves to this particular screen. You're going to be opening directly into the standard applicant information screen. And this will provide a lot of information that you previously entered or was generated in grants.gov. So some of this information will come over and will be editable. A lot of times people will ask, well, what if I put information in the SF424 in grants.gov, but it's not the same information I really want to submit? That's okay. Grants.gov, the SF424, can be entered. You can enter preliminary information, and then you can update with the final information in JustGrants. That's not a problem. And you don't have to go back to grants.gov to align the two things. Once your application is in JustGrants, that's all you need to work with moving forward. You don't have to go back to grants.gov. So here we have the applicant information. We've got the funding opportunity information. We also have the project information that you entered. And notice that this is actually editable. These are editable fields. You can get into any of these fields and update the project title, the start date, the end date, the estimated federal estimated funding. You can update the applicant external funding amount, and you can update the total funding. The next section is areas affected by the project, and this is where you'll list sort of the general regions or that are going to be affected by this project. So in this case, this is going to be a statewide project, and so you can type in state. If it's both state and sort of additional, maybe a county in another state, you can enter that. You just type the information that you need. Moving down, the application type came across as an initial application, but can be changed. And you'll notice that you can also change this type of applicant information. Again, this would be information that you entered in the SF424 on grants.gov. And notice at the bottom, any attachments that you entered in grants.gov in connection with the SF424 appear here at the bottom. And the name link allows you to open and view those attachments in their native format, either PDF or a TXT file, Microsoft Word document. So all of that information is automatically transferred for you here. If you click a link, for instance, to open a PDF, the PDF opens in the bottom left corner of the screen, and you click open, and you will eventually see the PDF, in all its glory, and you'll be able to use this PDF format to download this form to your workstation, or use the print option to print a hard copy of this if you need to. So I'm just going to readjust my screen here so that we are able to see more of it. The Save button allows you to save any changes you might have made, but stay here within the same section that you're looking at. It's recommended that you use the section menu on the right-hand side to navigate, and then notice the solicitation instructions right above. Again, those blue letters indicate a link. The solicitation will open again in PDF format. And this will allow you to download the solicitation, view it on a separate monitor if you have one, or print it so that you are able to get the guidance that you need from the solicitation in order to complete your application. So once we've gone through the standard applicant section, we'll go to confirm the authorized representative. And again, it's important to understand that the authorized representative does not have an active role in an application. However, you must designate an authorized representative in order to submit an application. So you can preview the information here. Once you confirm that representative, that information appears below. And, it is possible once, if you are going to be accepting funding, if funding is offered and you're accepting, it is possible to change that authorized representative later as well. Now, in this section, we're verifying the legal name and address. And as Teresa mentioned, it's important to be sure that your legal name and doing business as reflects an eligible entity for this JAG application. So this is where you can check that and make sure that you have the correct legal entity name and all of that. All of this information comes from sam.gov. So if you find information here that you need to update, you're going to need to do that in sam.gov. And after 24 hours, that information will be passed back to JustGrants. So some of these updates are not immediate if they happen in separate systems, but they will happen within 24 hours because they communicate daily. You also have physical address and mailing address information. And at the bottom of this section, there's a certification. And you, as the application submitter, are certifying that this is the correct entity that you're using to submit this application. So again, be sure that your entity name and doing business as are the correct ones. In this application, you'll notice there's a section for proposal abstract that does not apply to your solicitation. Every solicitation has a different look and feel within the application. So this one, we're not using it, we're skipping it. But the proposal narrative is going to be uploaded as a separate file. So to upload the proposal narrative, you use the little upload button here. And we're going to go and search for the proposal narrative file that we've captured here and are holding on our workstation. And once we upload that proposal narrative file, you see that there's a name there. You can update that if you like. But what's really important here is that you attach this proposal narrative using the correct file category. This is how JustGrants knows that what you've uploaded, this specific Word document that you've uploaded, is specifically the proposal narrative. If you use a different file category, JustGrants will not recognize that you've uploaded a proposal narrative because it doesn't read the name, it reads the file category. So very important when you're uploading documents to do that. The budget that you're going to submit will be also an uploaded file and will be uploaded in the same format. If your budget is not complete, you can upload a placeholder document and then work with the Department of Justice with JAG to make sure that you get your budget uploaded in a timely manner. But again, because these deadlines are hard and fast, you can upload a placeholder document as needed, but the budget will be an uploaded document. Here we're going to take a look at the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOUs, and other supportive documents. And many of these are, again, file uploads. So notice this accordion file gives you different types of files to upload. Yours may differ because this is not an Edward Byrne solicitation, but yours may differ. And again, you'll need to go and search for the specific file for this category. And again, be sure that you click the correct file category. Again, this is how JustGrants is able to connect the file that you uploaded with the type of file that's required. So here we are, and you can see that once you've uploaded it, the file is categorized within this particular file grouping, and JustGrants recognizes it as that type of file. We're going to take a look at some of these disclosures. The disclosure of lobbying activities, or the SFLLL, will appear here from grants.gov, and it will be listed there as an attachment. And you'll need to go through all of the other disclosures and assurances that appear. Some of them are lengthy. You'll need to read through them, of course, and at the very bottom, each one needs to be certified by you as the application submitter that you've read it and understand it, and it will place your name and a date and time stamp indicating that you're the person that certified this as being acknowledged within this application. So we'll continue on. And again, there are other disclosures and assurances here. And when you see the upload button again, it all works the same. You can go and find your file. Typically, these files are limited to PDFs, Excel files, and Microsoft Word documents. So no fancy files are going to be accepted here in the application. So again, as we continue on, we're going to continue to look at our disclosures. This is a declaration of certification to this application submission. And at the end, we always have an other category where you might upload documents that relate to your application that were not easily organized into any of these other categories. The very end, certify and submit, you have the opportunity to review all of the entries that you've made. You can review all of the attachments that you see and open them up. You can see the authorized representatives, see all of the certifications that you've checked. So this is a visual verification, and notice it gives you all of these separate application, links. So again, this is your review and check to make sure that you've got everything in the application that you need. Again, if you have questions about what's required within the application, the solicitation is your best bet for beginning to answer these questions. And if the solicitation itself doesn't provide that information, the solicitation has a contact name listed on the front page, and that would be the person to call about that. At the very bottom of this certify and submit page, you see there's one little checkbox that says final review and certification of application confirmation. You'll need to check that in order for the submit button at the bottom to become active. So once that submit button is active, you can go ahead and click it. And if there are any errors or validation errors, if there are any mismatches, for instance, in the funding numbers, or if there are any required fields that have not been populated, or if there are required documents that have not been uploaded, you will see at the top of the page, once you hit submit, kind of a pink banner and a validation message that says you need to do this. For instance, if you hadn't added the authorized representative, it'll tell you to go add the authorized representative. And once all of those error messages have been resolved, you'll be able to submit, and then the application will be sent to the Department of Justice for review and funding decisions. So those are the demos I have for you today. Stacy, are there any questions related to the demos or any other questions that we can take a look at right now?
Yes, ma'am. There are a lot of questions.
All right.
I'm trying to get to see where we kind of left off. Someone wanted to go over the areas affected by project again. So I don't know if you can scroll back to that.
Let's see if I can do that. Okay, what was the areas affected by project?
Yes.
All right, so that's a good question. So the areas affected by project will typically sort of give a general idea about, what areas the funding that you're using is going to affect. For instance, is this something that will happen at a local precinct level? Is this something that will happen within, a few zip codes? Is this something that will affect within your county or your parish? Is this something that will apply to, the state as a whole? So essentially what's being requested here is just really what is the general geographical area that's going to be affected by your project. So you can add up to 10 of these lines here. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but it has to give a good general representation of the physical geographical area that your project is going to affect.
Okay, and some people are having issues with the printing as far as like the size is too small, or can they print the attachments with the application? So can you talk to that a little bit?
I sure can. That's a really good question. So if you notice here in the upper right corner, right up with that little red circle, there's a print button. And this will allow you to print the application. However, with the caveat that it will not print attachments. It's not designed right now to print attachments. So the idea being that if you have attachments stored on your workstation, you can print those separately from your workstation. But what this will print is all of the sort of web-based forms, everything that you type directly into JustGrants, it will print that. And essentially, I think probably the best thing that you'll see is it will print essentially what you see here in this final certify and submit. So it'll print everything that you see here physically on the page. As far as the font, you know, the print file is just going to sort of pick up this document and print it to your printer. So if you're struggling with the font, I would think that maybe once you open the print document, it will allow you to sort of, within that sort of print, the print dialog box, allow you to set up your printer to print this the way that you want it. So I don't know that JustGrants itself is going to adjust the font, but you'll have to adjust the font when you're selecting your printer and selecting all of the options within your printer.
Could they just put citywide for when it comes to the zip codes?
Sure. So you can type in whatever you like. You know, you can type in whatever you like. I would, you know, encourage you to perhaps, you know, enter the name of the city, but just, you know, if you just say City of Los Angeles or, you know, City of Tucson, that would be fine.
This is kind of going back a little bit to the entity administrator. So they had someone leave for retirement, and when the new entity administrator logs into JustGrants, he sees the Diamond authorization website, and he does not have the JustGrants app available to him. He was switched over a year ago, but has never been able to log in. What can they do to correct this?
I think that the best answer to that is if JustGrants is not acting the way it should, I would contact our technical support group, and we'll give you all of that contact information here at the end of the session. But I would also venture to check to see if the entity administrator should see the JustGrants login. So I would, if I were you, contact our technical support group for assistance with that.
I'm just reading through, trying to make sure I don't miss anything. Is there a character limit in the areas affected or within JustGrants in general?
Oh, you know, that's a good question. The character limit, I don't know the character limit within the areas affected, but I would try to be concise because I don't believe that it's a particularly necessarily a long one. If there are character limits, for instance, in any of the text boxes in JustGrants, those would be determined typically by the solicitation. So you might check the solicitation to see if there are character limits for anything in particular. Some of the fields may actually show the character limits below the text field. So I think the best answer is that many of these fields have different character limits, and they're determined in part by the solicitation that you have. Now, one of the things that I do know about character limits is I believe there's an 84 character limit to a file name. So if you get a file name that's longer than 84 characters, you're not going to be able to upload that file into JustGrants. So you'll want to be concise in your in the naming of the files that you're uploading to JustGrants.
And another question is, can you attach PDF docs in addition to Word and Excel?
Yes, you can. PDF, Word, and Excel are the accepted file types.
Okay. If they're on the narrative submission page and don't see the upload button, what should they do?
If you're on the narrative submission page and you don't see the upload button, I would definitely contact technical support, because that should appear.
I think that is majority of the questions. We have a question a couple of times about the Q&A chat. Will that be available? We will make that available to the JAG team, and if they decide to post, then they can. But we will make that available so that people can see the Q&A questions from the session.
All right. Thanks so much, Stacy. I know you've got a lot of questions to go through. Thanks for pulling those out. So I think at this time, I think I'm going to turn the presentation back over to DJ, who's going to tell you what to expect once you click that submit button. So DJ?
Thank you so much. Okay, so after you've submitted your application, you're probably wondering what's next. Once all the application for solicitation has been reviewed, the entity will be notified. Every user in JustGrants should take the time to check the system on a regular basis in order to be aware of any deadlines of information they need related to the application. As you work on your application in JustGrants, you will see one or more of these status codes associated with the application. So, if you see the pending diamond onboarding status code, it means that either the entity administrator or the application submitter haven't completed the registration process. Every new user must successfully log into JustGrants to validate their registration. You may also see the new status. This indicates that the application has been received from grants.gov and is waiting for a user to be assigned to it. If your application remains in the pending diamond onboarding status for more than 24 hours after users complete registration, that may be an indicator that additional actions are required by the entity administrator. Common issues include a user email address is already associated with another entity or DUNS number, or an invalid email address was provided in Section F of the 424. Please check your entity user information to confirm current users and their roles and contact the JustGrants support desk. When both the entity administrator and the application submitter have been fully onboarded and the application submitter assigned to the application, then the status will display as pending draft. This is the working status. At this time, the entity administrator will need to invite and register the authorized representative as well. From pending draft status, there are several possible next steps. If the application is canceled, the next status will be resolved canceled. If the deadline has passed and it is no longer possible to submit an application on the solicitation, the status will automatically become resolved deadline passed. If you have canceled the application due to the fact that it is a duplicate, the resolved duplicate status will be associated with the application. If you choose to withdraw the application, the status will change to resolved withdrawn. Finally, once you have submitted the application, the status will display as application submitted. In the application submitted status, DOJ will complete internal reviews and make funding decisions. The system will also notify the application submitter, entity administrator, and authorized representative when the application has been received in JustGrants from grants.gov. The entity administrator will receive notification on the award notification status changes. And lastly, your entity administrator and authorized representative will be notified if the application deadline changes. If you're not receiving notifications, please check your spam folder before reaching out to support. And now we'd like to share a wealth of resources with you as you continue navigating JustGrants. Here are a few helpful tools to get started. Make sure you are checking your emails for updates and information about JustGrants. If you are not getting emails, if you go to the link at the bottom of the screen and which has been placed in the chat and click on the News and Updates section, it will bring you to a place where you can sign up for emails. The link that you see on the bottom of the slide also brings you to this page with all the information on how to use JustGrants. You have the checklist of all the steps needed to get ready: training resources, news and updates, FAQs, the About section, and of course, the user support. Experiencing difficulties with grants.gov or SAM.gov must contact the Grantsgov customer support hotline or the SAM help desk to report the technical issue and receive a tracking. Applicants experiencing difficulties with JustGrants must contact the JustGrants support desk at justgrants.support@usdoj.gov or call 833-872-5175 Monday through Friday between the hours of 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and Saturday, Sunday, and federal holidays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If your application is associated with the OVW office, please reach out to them at ovw.justgrantsupport@usdoj.gov or call 866-655-4482 if you're having issues with JustGrants. In the chat, a few links have been placed in order to assist you if you are experiencing difficulties. If you need to reach out to the help desk, here are a few tips to help speed up your service request. Please provide as much detailed information about the task that you are trying to accomplish as possible. Along with the details about the issue that you encountered, it is also helpful to include the following items that you see here on this list. All right, Teresa, I think that you're going to give us a little bit more information about JAG specific resource links.
Absolutely. Thanks, DJ. So here we have listed some JAG-specific resources, and we have actually as we said, we're going to post a link to this presentation on the JAG webpage. The link to the JAG webpage is here also, and we have on the JAG webpage, the landing page, you're going to see all of this information as well. So that is really the best resource where you're going to find all of the program guidance, allocation amounts, solicitations, links to resources such as budget detailed worksheets, and we've seen a lot of those questions in the Q&A chat. So all of that information will be found here. You'll also, on the JAG webpage, see links to your contact for your program manager for your specific JAG award. So for locals and anyone over 25,000 or more, there's a specific contact list for that. And then any award less than 25, there's a contact list for those award amounts as well, to find your specific grant manager or program manager. We also have a resource response center. The response center is great for any solicitation specific questions. Anything that we haven't answered here, they can certainly answer. They've been fielding a lot of questions in terms of applying. I just met with them last week, and they've been fielding a lot of questions related to grants.gov and JustGrants as well, even though there are specific centers for calling for them, help centers for them. But any kind of JAG specific questions can also be directed to the response center. Also, if you have any questions at all related to this, please click on your grant manager on the contact list for your grant manager. they should be able to direct you as well. And if they can't answer a question, they will certainly elevate it so that it can be answered. Thanks, DJ.
Thank you so much. All right, Stacy, are there any more questions in the Q&A that we can address?
I think a lot of the questions are specific questions to certain information. So I'm going to turn it over to the JAG team to see if there's any questions that they would like to make sure we address or that they've seen throughout the session that they want to pinpoint before we close.
Hi, this is Teresa. So I have seen a couple of questions related to DUNS. So the legal name does have to be the city or the county, and the police department can be a doing business as, but as long as the city or the county is the legal name related to that DUNS number, then that is acceptable. Also, I've seen a lot of questions about program-specific guidance that is listed in the JAG solicitations, which are posted on the JAG webpage. And you can find the JAG webpage, the easiest landing page is www.bja.gov/JAG. And that will take you to the JAG webpage where you'll find a lot of the specific links and information that you need. Darius, did you have anything else that you wanted to, or Brenda, that you wanted to pick out from these that you've been seeing? Oh, I do see one about the 30-day requirement. I'll just jump on that real quick and answer it verbally. The 30-day requirement is incorporated into the chief executive certification. So we used to have a public comment and then a 30-day governing body review. Both of those are incorporated into the chief executive certification. So once that is signed, you're attesting that those requirements have been fulfilled. So hopefully that takes care of that one. And the chief executive should be signed by the highest elected official for the city or county. So for the city, it would be typically the mayor. For the county, it would be the chairman of the board. For the state, it would be the governor.
Thank you very much, Teresa, and thank you all for joining us today. I do not have anything to add. I think, Teresa, you covered all of the JAG specific requirements. Darius, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
I've just been trying to respond to as many questions here that are coming in at the end as possible, but just wanted to say thanks to everyone for participating, to definitely use the JAG webpage and the FAQs as a resource, or reach out to your state policy advisor for more specific information. There were a lot of questions about disparates and whether or not multiple jurisdictions need to apply. It is only the fiscal agent, and that is up to the disparate group to determine. And you would attach that signed MOU as part of the application process and make the determination as to which agency will act as the fiscal agent. And if there are any jurisdictions in a disparate group who do not want to apply, they can simply submit something in writing to the state policy advisor indicating they're declining the opportunity to apply, and then the remaining jurisdictions can share the rest. That was it. We did get quite a few questions on disparity. Thanks, Brenda.
All right, before we wrap up for the day, here are just a few more guidance to get you started here. There is an FAQ available for you to review that may have some of the questions asked here today. The link to the resources related for application submission, roles matrix, grants.gov, and sam.gov are linked within this presentation. Please utilize the JustGrants training support email for any questions that you may have along with the way or after, once you've utilized the self-service support available. And here are some additional links to help you as you go through JustGrants. And this is the end of our session. Thank you so much for your attendance today, and we hope you have a great remainder of your day.